So yesterday we built this beautiful puppy over here, and I've learned a few things. A, building inside of it is an amazing experience. B, making B-roll shots of it is a nightmare. Double glass front, side, with the curve, impossible to position the lights so that they don't reflect in a really nasty looking way. And the third thing I learned is it is mesmerizing to watch fog or smoke being sucked into a case. We just got this machine a few days ago and I tried it out for the first time, and I think I'm going to use it in the future to visualize how case airflow or the airflow path goes, or how air is getting sucked into a fan or out of a fan and that kind of stuff. I'm not sure how useful that information will be. Most useful probably for cases, like see why something is a hotbox or why not. But it is just like the most mesmerizing thing if I'm able to turn it on. I think I broke it. Okay. This is so mesmerizing. Yeah, maybe stop before I fill the room again with fog. But I have also done a bunch of benchmarks for this machine right over here, and this is a 13600K with a Deepcool Dark Zero. What is it? A? No, does it have like a number? AK, yeah, it's a AK620 Dark Zero. Underneath we have that Gainward Phantom RTX 4080, and we have the basic setup what Montech delivers with the King 95. Plus one additional exhaust fan in the top, which I believe was very necessary. Like you could see in a bunch of the B-rolls that air is actually being pushed out here in the front. And that's like a perfect use case for this little fog machine over here. So I was pushing fog underneath it or behind it, doesn't really matter, and you can see a bit of fog being pushed out here in between the RGB strip and the glass. And that's a quite useful information. Like I believe if we would spec out the case with exhaust fans and the static pressure setup would change, then maybe air would be sucked in by that gap or whatever is in between there. But we can see we have positive pressure, everything is being pushed out, and perfectly fine to use a machine like that. But to get to some numbers, I locked the CPU to 5.1 GHz on the P core and 3.9 on the E cores. I had about 140 watts going through the socket. I had Furmark at 1080p because my little monitor is just 1080p, but I had Furmark 1080p, 8 XMSAA, and I had, what is it called again? CPU burner also from Furmark to burn those 140 watts, and to my very surprise it is cooling spectacularly well. We were looking at 81 degrees C as an average on the CPU package and 62 on the GPU. Then for good measure, because I need them for later in this video, I also turned down all the fans, so also the case fans, straight down to exactly 50%. And there the CPU package temperature on average was 89 degrees C, and on the GPU we saw the exact same 62. So 89 for 50% of whatever fan speed they got. Fast spinning fans is impressive, I think. It's very good, because at 50% that thing is like unhearable. It is very, very quiet. So actually the whole build turned out perfectly fine. A 13600K plus the 4080 is perfectly fit for all nowadays like relevant games, and it cools down perfectly fine. So I'm very, very happy. But it can also be better, because what I wanted to do for today is rebuild this case in its mesh mode, which basically means remove that glass front and then replace it with the mesh panel. But I would love to tell you that this is like a 2-second procedure and we are done in like a 4-minute video. However, there is one little thing that is quite stupid, but it will become a problem, because the moment I will switch those side fans out, or I will turn the whole thing to the front, what will happen is that they are still like intake fans. So they will be pushing the air out in that reverse case, which is quite stupid and not what we want. But thankfully, Montech also included in our box a bunch of AX140 regular fans, so basically the 140mm equivalent of their AX120 fan, which is already in the back. So we need to replace the two side fans, and then we can relocate the two side fans, which are still pushing air into the case from the back, to that back bracket, giving us again the two side intakes, but two additional front intakes, which not only will hugely increase the pressure inside this case, but will probably also result in lower temperatures, or at least lower noise if we can reduce the amount of fan speed that we require. And one thing I didn't think about, which I'm realizing right now, is that I will need to at least remove the GPU to turn these fans around, which is not what I wanted to do today, but I gotta do it. But something that I will also try to do today is do all of this changing and removing and installing back in with the minimum amount of steps that I can possibly perform. But I believe the GPU is flat out minimum. There is no way I will get that bracket to turn without removing that GPU. Whoever thought this lock was a good idea? It was not. But okay, GPU is out, and now one thing I already learned about the case when I shot all the B-rolls about it is that you don't need to remove this bottom fan here actually to like turn this bracket around. What you can also do, yes I know it's quite stupid but it works perfectly fine, you can turn this partially and with your fingers you can turn the hinge essentially, because it's like a two-part hinge where, like, how should I say, you have one hinge part and the other one and they are moving independently, and you can push all of that out, giving you enough space in the top, like that, to remove the whole thing, which is amazing. And now I don't need to remove the bottom fans. Same moment I have access to the screws, so let's just quickly do those. Don't forget, minimum amount of steps. Oh, fuck off. Okay, we got a little problem because the top fan, I believe, yeah, I can remove completely from that bracket, that works fine, but the bottom one, the cable, is inside or going through a hole in the bracket, so, oh, damn it. Oh, and behind it's, oh, there is a zip tie. And another zip tie, like Montech, I love the fact that you zip tie all of these fans, but maybe not this one, just not this one. Yeah, and now, in one go, I destroyed Montech's beautiful cable management here in the back, and I can redo all of it later on. One fan and the other fan. In the very least, we didn't have to remove the bottom fan. So at least we saved like 4 screws or 8 screw actions. Something was won here. Now another thing which will maybe even change the performance of all of this in a drastic way actually is that now the back fan, or the side fan more, the side intake fan will be much more squished to the back of the case, which may even result in some interesting performance differences, because let's start maybe screwing here. Because as you might have seen in the B-roll shots where I pushed the smoke into the bag, like the air is going in, yes, but it is not sucked in by the same degree as, for example, the bottom does. Like there you can see that the fog is really being heavily sucked into the case, whereas in the bag it's going in, yes, but it's not like it's forced to go in, and that's something that you actually want. You want that to be like as forced as possible. So this could actually result in a positive difference, but I guess we need to wait until I can turn on that fog machine again. Yeah, let's take the electric one. What am I playing here? Okay, now before I close and wire this up, I need to wait because I also need to mount the new front ones. And those here are 140mm Montech AX fans, and I mean, to be very honest, the whole AX RX line of Montech is not particularly good. We had them, or the 120 version of them, in a independent review, and as case fans, they will do the job, they will, but it's really not like they are exceptionally good performing fans. I mean, let's not lie to ourselves. You get like what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 for free with the case. So how good can they be? But in a for free sense, I guess they will do the job and they are okay. Oh, I can see they needed to use the hole here. And as Montech includes a bunch of them for free with this case, I thought let's also use the ones that they send over for this, I guess for this video, to have all Montech fans this time here, and even if they are not the best in the world, they will do. Mounting anything inside this bracket takes a bit longer than I expected. Whew. Okay, now the whole thing can go back in there. And let's just hope I won't break anything while doing so. Did I just install all of these fans the wrong way around? Because the bracket needs to be turned this way? Yes, I did. Okay. Now this should work. Yes. And now I can push this top little lever here down. Works fine. Now just let's do some cable management in the back to get all of these fans wired back in, and then we are pretty much ready to go with my newly created cable mess. Great. Thankfully, Montech includes a bunch of zip ties, which you most definitely need, because now there are basically cables dangling in front of those back fans, and you don't want them to, dangle in the back fans, which is why I will try to wire all of these up as tight as I can, just to make sure that nothing bad ever happens here. Whew. Okay, I think I even did a pretty decent job. Like, I used a bunch of zip ties and the leftover 120mm? Well, the leftover whatever rails there was on the fan bracket in the front, and I could utilize the space in between to zip tie everything in there. And now nothing is remotely capable of getting squished or pulled into the fan, so I'm happy with that. Now, final few steps, GPU. That was quick for a change. Getting a GPU in is always a lot quicker than out. And ta-da! And now, on one side, we still got that pretty damn beautiful tempered glass side panel, which I can clean all over again. Great job there. But in the front, we now got this all mesh panel providing us with just additional airflow all over the place. And I gotta say, it doesn't look bad, not at all. Now, in my opinion, it kind of resembles more to like an O11 than it did before. But no, this is a fine design in my opinion. But one thing I will immediately test, and I can pretty much do that on the standard fan setting. Will the air now get sucked in much more aggressively than before? Or at least in the back. So I really want to know that. It definitely does. Now the air is really getting sucked in. How about the front? Oh damn. But okay, I guess let me do some benchmarks and just see how this now performs on the standard fan speed that we tested before and the 50% fan speed, just to see how everything will be going. And in the meantime, you can enjoy how this thing now looks. So I'm done doing the benchmarks and the results are surprising, actually. So before we were looking at 81 degrees C on the CPU package on average over a couple of minutes and 62 on the GPU, with all the fans doing whatever ASRock is telling the case fans to do and the CPU fans and whatever the GPU was doing. Then limiting all the fans down to 50% resulted in 89 degrees C for the CPU and 62 for the GPU. That was with the glass side, the glass front, but how did it change? Well, it didn't. With everything at auto, we were looking at, again, 81 degrees C on the CPU package and 62 on the GPU, so no change whatsoever. However, it is possible that the fans were spinning slightly slower due to the temperature being lower, and then the whole thing equalized, and in fact the whole thing would be quieter at the same level of cooling performance. And because of that, what we also did is limit everything again down to 50%. And to my very surprise, we were looking at 89 degrees C on the CPU package and 62 on the GPU. So congratulations, by installing the front mesh and installing another two 140mm regular spinning fans giving us front airflow, we achieved literally zero. I'm not saying this is bad, I'm actually happy with the result, because this does mean that given the load that we had, the CPU that we had, we were pushing 140 watts, the GPU is quite big, although the load wasn't substantial given it was just 1080p. But in a scenario, the average build, the difference boiled down to nothing. It's a design choice. It's more a design choice than a performance choice. Of course, if I would now spec out the whole system, at some point there will be a difference. But unlike, for example, what we found on the Cougar Duo phase, the difference won't be like noticeable from the get-go. It's not like I'm losing a degree all across the board. No, I'm winning literally zero. So overall, Montech seemed to have done a pretty good job with cooling from like a out-of-the-box state with the glass in the front. The side intakes and the bottom intakes seem to be sufficient to cool the whole thing to a point where the mesh is just like added pleasure, or if you really wanted to spec this thing out with the most crazy, most insane, whatever hardware you are able to find. But for a regular case, literally zero. It just looks different, and we now got the ARGB going in the front, which you may or may not like. That's your choice. And as for today, or for today's video, at least I learned that in this case, it's more a choice than a necessity, like for example the Duo phase, where you just flat out want a degree or up to a couple of degrees. But here, no, it's just designed, so up to you. Until a certain point of like hardware, but for a regular build, this is fine. But okay, for today, I learned something which I did not anticipate. Slapping in the mesh in the front doesn't change a damn thing in like the most average build or most average load possible with a 4080 and a 13600K, but that was interesting. If there is the need to find the spot where the mesh front will become interesting, I'm more than happy to do so. I just need to know if there are enough people to make like an interesting video out of it, because like testing like a bunch of hardware inside the same case on different fan speed and then find like the point where one becomes better than the other, that takes days of benchmarking. So if there is an audience for that, sure, tell me in the comments and I will take the case out of the carton again and then just try until I hit the spot, and then I will tell you about the spot. But for today, the King 95 is an excellent case out of the box. That's for sure. Montech did an excellent job. And for me now, I can start working on the review of this thing, because there will be very little negative to be said about this case. But for today, this was it. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you enjoyed another smoke show, which will just flat out continue. I swear, this is so mesmerizing to do. This is like my favorite type. I already bought like a 10-liter bucket worth of the fluid, or the vape fluid that goes in here, because this is essentially just a big vape, nothing more, and I really need to stop this. But for today, thank you for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye bye.